Henna, New Jersey League of Municipalities, in favor, no need to testify. And the officer you were speaking about, Gloucester Township Police Chief David Harkins, in favor. Would you like to testify?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Before you go on, apparently there are some amendments, so I'm just going to have those named.
The committee amended the bill to make clarifying and technical changes.
Sir, go ahead.
Good morning. I want to first thank this committee and Senator Moriarty for having me here to speak about this and for me the opportunity to support this legislation. I'll first say I'm honored to be here representing the men and women of the Gloucester Township Police Department, as well as the Camden County Association of Chiefs of Police. I am the sitting president of that association as well. And I want to try to paint a picture of what we experienced that day, because I don't think words, that just reading about it and whatnot, gave it enough, the mayhem that we had to encounter that day. On it was June 1st, 2024, and the community of Gloucester Township has a great event, and it's called Gloucester Township Day. And these are festivities at our Veterans Park, right next to our municipal complex, and it's held every first Saturday of June, and it's happened for over 40 years. I went to this as a kid and enjoyed this. And it consists basically of music all through the day, live entertainment, amusement rides, food, vendors, and this year we had a nighttime drone show planned in lieu of to change it up from normal fireworks that we had. The proceeds of the day's events goes to the Gloucester Township Scholarship Committee. This is to fund college scholarships for the graduates of our high schools. And so that evening, as evening came upon us, families were enjoying themselves on the rides, very festive occasion, getting ready for the light show. So my officers that were working security at the event began to notice something out of the ordinary, an influx of juveniles and young adults that were being dropped off on side streets surrounding the event, the park where the event took place. Crowds of young people began congregating in large groups in the areas of these basketball courts that's on this open field where the event's happening. The crowd of juveniles and the young adults were estimated, grew very large, very quickly, 500 or more so of this group started to congregate. It appeared to the officers, and I saw it firsthand, they knew each other or they were communicating in some way. And at about 8:40 p.m., these groups just started fighting with each other. They just started running recklessly through the crowd. And this crowd consisted of families, kids in strollers, kids playing, lawn chairs, that kind of stuff to watch this, this drone show that was going to take place. We responded quickly and we immediately made 2 arrests for disorderly conduct, but the crowd continued to remain hostile and disorderly to the officers and the residents that were attending. The incident commander of the event called in additional Gloucester Township police officers for support, and we needed to get additional mutual aid from surrounding Camden County police agencies. Due to the volatility of this situation, I conferred with our mayor, Mayor David Mayer, and had them, it was supposed to be a 9 o'clock start for the show. We had to bump the start time up to 8:40 to just get it done and over with, trying to balance things out. Immediately upon the conclusion of the show, officers began dispersing the crowd off the field. Large crowds moved. We moved them across the street, closed the street to move them to a shopping center that's just adjacent across, really to get them away from these families that are just trying to enjoy themselves at this event. Again, multiple fights broke out amongst the crowds throughout the parking lots of this shopping center. We had to make additional requests for mutual aid. We had to call out a countywide EMS task force for injuries that were resulting in some of the assaults. Our SWAT team, our special response team, was called out because we were getting overwhelmed very quickly. Fights continued to break out over the course of 2 hours across in this shopping center parking lot. We later determined that most of these groups of juveniles were not from Gloucester Township, and they had been dropped off, and they all now needed rides. We're stuck with them, and it was very difficult to get them in and out. Many of the instigators of those fighting were wearing black clothing, covering their faces in hoodies, and wearing medical-style face masks. Now, this was a warm summer night. This was unusual dress for people attending an outdoor event. Several of the juveniles also reported being assaulted. At least we had 2 to 4 injuries of people being assaulted. Both were treated at the scene and released. While a group of officers was dispersing the crowd, a 33-year-old man from Camden brazenly rode his bicycle right through a group of officers, striking a Gloucester Township police officer who was facing away from him in the back, knocking him to the ground. This was done right in front of me. The suspect was immediately arrested for assaulting the officer and charged with attempting to escape after he tried to get away from the officers out of his handcuffs. The officer luckily, and I mean luckily, I thought he was really hurt, only suffered minor injuries. I mean, when you hear the call of an officer down over the radio, it kind of sends chills up all the officer's spine, but he was down. Luckily, he wasn't hurt too bad. Other Gloucester Township police officer and a neighboring officer from Clementon Borough also suffered injuries, one with a knee injury and one with an ankle turn. A total of 11 people were arrested that night, including 2 adult males and 9 juveniles. Honestly, if more officers were available, we would have made more arrests. We were trying to target the main instigators as they popped up. As officers tried to disperse the crowd and control them, groups tried to surround officers. This happened to me. They were being extremely belligerent, disrespectful, and just overall nasty to the officers, the things they were saying. It should be noted that we had a lot of officers there. We're a 136-man full-time police officer agency. I had 68 police officers from my agency there, which is a large number of officers that should have easily been able to handle a normal Gloucester Township Day event. They were assigned, we had call-ins that happened, and we had at least 30 additional officers come from our mutual aid surrounding towns, both in Camden County and Gloucester County. The incident was declared under control by me at 11:04 p.m., and I can tell you that it was a harrowing 2 hours. The officers who responded showed great restraint when dealing with these violent and agitating groups, and the mutual aid we received was unprecedented in the history of Gloucester Township. I saw this firsthand, and I was very proud of the officers. They really kept an eye on each other. They controlled each other's emotions and tempers under difficult circumstances, and they brought this situation under control. I'm thankful that more injuries were not sustained to officers, and especially to those family members and little kids that were just there to enjoy an event that has gone on for 40 years. Because of our investigative efforts, we learned more about the dynamics of this situation. We made 5 additional arrests based on body camera video that we had in other ways. This was just the lawlessness was unprecedented in my 30-year career as a police officer. They were unsupervised juveniles and young people acting with total disregard for others. This ruined a family-oriented event that is designed to raise money for our youth to go to college. It was clear to us very early in the incident that these groups seemed to be organized, at least loosely organized. They were communicating. They just didn't show up at this one street, get dropped off, and then start acting like this. They were dropped off at a particular time, about 8:30, 8:15, when we knew the drone show would be at 9 o'clock, right after it got dark. And it appears as though they weren't from the area. And we knew this because juveniles were getting dropped off by ride shares and even vehicles that had out-of-state tags. It was very unusual. It wasn't families getting out of their vehicles. Upon the conclusion of the drone show, again, it was chaotic. As we investigated, we determined that these groups of young adults and juveniles had, in fact, from talking to some of those arrested, were organized over social media platforms for the purpose of coming and creating trouble at our event and to fight groups that they didn't get along with, who were also using social media to target our event and show up at. These actions of those involved, they were more than just disorderly conduct. And yet we also tried to speak with our prosecutor. It didn't fit the criteria of rioting legally, and somewhere in between. And I think that's part of this legislation, is trying to address this, this issue. It wasn't disorder, it was somewhere in between. And I think public brawling was exactly what I was experiencing, seeing happening in front of me, organized. And that's why this legislation, I believe, is needed, to close that loophole in the Criminal Justice Code, which never considered, when it was written, this new social media technology that we're encountering. We're all trying to figure that out, which allowed for these violent groups to be organized for the sole purpose of being lawless and public brawling. It was clear to us, like I said, it was a very warm summer-like night, and many of these adults and juveniles were dressed to conceal their identities while they were fighting each other and fighting with officers in an effort to not be identified. This hampered our efforts to later identify suspects who destroyed property and those that actually assaulted people that were attending this event. We also believe that the parents and juveniles involved in this violent behavior were aware, some of them were aware of how their children were dressing, that they were being dropped off to an event, and basically they had to perceive that they were going to be up to no good by the way that was happening. And parents who allow, in my opinion, their teens to participate in this type of reckless, violent behavior also need to be held accountable under the law. It should be noted that the very following week, Pennsauken Township in Camden County had the same type of event. I believe it was their Pennsauken Day or some type of event, what it was called. And they needed to call in large numbers of mutual aid officers, including officers from Gloucester Township. And they ended up canceling their fireworks show. They ended up having to fire off their fireworks with no one around because they had already paid for it, but it became so out of control with the same exact type of violent behavior, the same exact social media platforms being used to organize these groups to go there. And as the Senator Moriarty said, I know of other municipalities who just flat out canceled their events for their communities out of fear that this was going to happen to them and give their community, their town, their municipality a black eye that's not deserving. What happened at our Gloucester Township Day event was unlike anything I've experienced in my 30 years as a police officer. And as a result, we've even decided to try to go ahead with the event, but we are not going to have any nighttime activities. It will be ended at 6 p.m. And we're going to lose a lot of funds from a lot of people that come during the evening, but we can't take the chance of having that. It would be irresponsible. Our mayor agrees at my recommendation, and that it'd be irresponsible to put ourselves in this position again, which I truly think is a shame. I think that's a shame because these are hallmarks of our communities, these types of events. It is because this, I vowed to support, to do what I can to help prevent this from happening to any other community and to happen to any other police officers that are put into that position. These types of events are very hard to plan for. If we know that a planned protest is happening, we know it's happening, we can prepare for that. This flash mob mentality and this organization is hard to put resources in place. We're constantly just reacting to what that crowd is doing. And so we're looking for that training aspect to try to get our officers as prepared as possible. And that will include in the future, social media monitoring and any other ways that we can get a step ahead to prevent these types of events from happening. And that's why I'm proud to support this legislation and any other actions that will hold violent offenders accountable. Again, I want to thank Senator Moriarty for having me here. Senator Greenstein, I appreciate you allowing me to testify, and all the senators on the committee. I appreciate your time and effort in this consideration, and I'm always available if anyone needs to speak further about it. But I want to thank you for considering it, and I appreciate you hearing the versions that I experienced on that night. Thank you.